Welcome to video 2 in accessible self-care for COVID-19. I'm Alison Old-Kerr. I'm a naturopathic physician, owner of PranaVis Medicine. I'm also a yoga instructor for Team Yoga Wild. I use the pronouns she, her. If you haven't already subscribed to the Yoga Wild channel, please do so now. Okay. This chat's going to be about the importance of nasal breathing and how we can use the nose to help us during this time. I'm happy to see that there is more and more conversation about this, but I want to get into a little bit more detail about why nasal breathing can be helpful. What we know about the SARS-CoV-2 virus, that's the virus that causes COVID-19, is that it enters the body through the nose and the mouth primarily. There's a little bit of eye transmission as well, but more often than not, the virus gets in our nose and mouth and makes its way down into the lungs where it can do the most damage. Now, when I think of the nose and the sinus cavity, I think of a giant HEPA filter. The sinuses in the nose are designed to help us filter out pollen, viruses, bacteria that can make us sick. It does it through a couple different mechanisms. The first mechanism is that the air as it comes in is moisturized. The actual anatomy of the sinuses helps that happen. There's also nasal hair and what are called cilia, or finger-like projections that are in the sinus cavities that basically help sweep pollen, viruses back out of the body so that the immune system doesn't have to deal with it. There's also something else important that happens in the nasal cavity. That is the production of a gas called nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide has a couple of different important functions. It's a vasodilator, meaning it opens up blood vessels, and that helps us keep the nasal sinuses open. It also seems to have some antimicrobial activity, right? And levels of nitric oxide in the sinuses are 18 times higher than they are in the lungs. So it truly behooves us to try and deal with viruses, in particular this one, before they even get into our lungs. And if we can just simply transition the way we breathe from in through our mouth to in and out of our nose as much as possible, it's one simple step that we can take to help us during this time. Now, I know in yoga we do a lot of cues around breath work. Since I've learned this information, I've changed my cueing. I tend to have people breathe in and out their nose as much as possible. In my own life, that looks like sometimes using things, frankly, to stick in my mouth to keep my mouth closed. So if I'm at home, I will, if I'm charting, say, or working on emails, I will stick a toothpick in my mouth that I have to hold there to help me keep my mouth closed. I've also used paper clips for that. I've used necklaces, jewelry for that sometimes I'll stick. And frankly, in a pinch, I've even used some clothes to stick in my mouth to remind me to breathe in and out of my mouth. There's also tape that can be used. I know that's kind of every parent's dream, to tape their child's mouth closed. That's not what I'm talking about. I do want to be clear too, that if we suddenly start breathing in and out our nose all the time, that doesn't make us invincible. I'm not saying that if you breathe in and out of your nose that you can now suddenly go around and lick doorknobs and let people cough on you. Of course, we go back to the important recommendations of hand washing, not touching your face, and social distancing to help us during this time, but it's such a simple step to transition to nasal breathing. I also do like to address, how do we take care of our nose during this time? If you recognize this is a neti pot. Please use distilled water or boiled and cooled water, and of course, add some salt to that. If you've ever had the pleasure of neti potting straight tap water, it's a miserable experience, so don't do that. I am a little bit lazy when it comes to this. This is my hack for it. This is simple saline solution, couple bucks at the drugstore. It does just what it looks like. These days I would clean the tip before putting it in my nose, and squirt, squirt, blow your nose. Traditional Ayurveda would have you follow up a saline rinse with a coating of oil. These days I would probably use a Q-tip to do that rather than my finger. Typically I would just sweep the nasal passages with some sesame oil or coconut oil even, something to keep those passages nice and moist. Okay? To recap, this is for breathing, this is for eating. Use something like a saline rinse to help keep your nose happy. Okay. Next up in this series, we'll talk about the immune system and what it actually is and the best way that you can tend to your immune system during these times. Again, I'm Alison Oldker. Thanks for being here. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. And if this has been beneficial for you at all, please consider sharing the message. Thanks.